I'm 27, I'm a social media manager, yet I still decided to quit Instagram. Hi you guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about why I quit Instagram. And perhaps you're trying to decide whether or not you should quit Instagram and you're looking for some inspiration. I hope my story do inspire you. Without further ado, let's get into it. So this video is gonna be in like 4 parts. I mean, one video, but 4 chapters. So the first chapter is gonna be about my relationship with social media. Then we're gonna talk about why I quit Instagram, like what are the reasons. Then the fear of quitting Instagram, how to go over that fear of quitting. Like, I think that if you are in that process, you're like, should I quit Instagram? Like, what's going on? And then the aftermath, like once you quit Instagram, like what is happening? It sounds like really deep and everything, but it's just social media. But I understand with today's day and age, it's difficult to leave something behind because that's how you get some connection with some people. And some people that are not on the platform, it may sound a bit dramatic. It's absolutely not. Everyone has their fears. We should respect them. So let's talk about my relationship with Instagram. Instagram was my first ever social media platform. I was not allowed to have Facebook when I was younger. My parents didn't want me to. And therefore, when Instagram happened, well, it wasn't technically Facebook, right? So my parents didn't tell me I couldn't use it, so I used them. I mainly used it for my blog because I was a beauty blogger back then. So it was around 2013. I was 16, 17. I didn't post anything about me. It was just about my blog and trying to promote it. Then a few years later, I decided to make it my personal thing when I started traveling. Traveling is a big thing on Instagram, and that was the main focus of my life when I was on Instagram, like showing off my travels. So I went to London for 3 months, and that's really when I started using it. Actually, my very first story was about that. And I posted quite a lot, even though it wasn't really always interesting. Then little by little, I showed more of my personal life. So I showed off my family moments, my friends, and even my ex-boyfriend. Funny thing is, I showed off more of my ex-boyfriend when we had a hard time. Despite showing off a lot of moments when it was hard, when it was really hard for me back in 2021, I actually stopped using Instagram. I removed all of my pictures. I archived them because I didn't want to lose everything. It was the first time that I didn't go on there, but it was just to come back. I came back because I traveled again. I went to Canada and I wanted to show off my travels. So Instagram was really a thing for me to connect with my friends and my family, to show off what I was doing. When in reality, I was calling my family each week, so they actually knew what I was doing. I sent them pictures and I didn't really need it Instagram. But whenever I traveled, I was posting pictures. Actually, back in 2019, I went to Bali with my friends because we saw so much of it on Instagram, and it was really like the Instagram trip where we would take pictures and post them. Instagram was really a way to show off my travel. But last year, I posted less throughout the year. Yes, I was showing off my travel, but the more I traveled, the less I found Instagram important. It does make sense. At the end of the year, when I was in USA, I posted my last story. I didn't know it was my last story, but yeah, I posted one last story and that was it. I grew really bored of Instagram. Here are the reasons why I decided to quit. First off, I felt embarrassed to have some relationship on that platform with people I had not seen in a long time. Either people that I was with in high school or college, or people that I met when I was studying abroad. I studied abroad 6 years ago and I was still following those people. It didn't make sense for me to see those people live when we didn't talk, and I felt really embarrassed for these people to have access to my profile when really I wasn't showing anything that was relevant to me. That made me really uncomfortable, and I really wanted to stop. Also, when I was traveling, I met all of those people, and especially when I was in the US, I met those people and they were like, oh, let's follow each other on Instagram. And I was like, I just barely know you. Like, why do you want to add me on Instagram? I thought my Instagram profile was more on the personal side. One thing that made me uncomfortable is the fact that I would stalk people for hours, people I don't even know. And I was like, oh my God, their life is really good. They are having kids and getting engaged and everything. I wish I could do that. Even though I was having the best time of my life, going abroad, the thing that I've always wanted, I was still stalking people. Like, what the f? Why did I spend time on this? Why was I wasting my precious time abroad on someone else's profile? That made me realize that I don't want anyone to have access to me as I have access to them. I slowly started to put my profile on private, removing people that I didn't want to follow and I didn't want them to follow me, which is funny because some of them came back to follow me and I was like, I don't want you here. You think that your profile is your personal space, but it's not. Also, about that whole like watching people and everything, I always checked who was viewing my stories. I was like, if they are a true friend, they must have viewed my stories. This is not realistic. It's not because I don't watch your stories that I'm not your friend, but I genuinely cared. Then there are also things that I was really embarrassed that I did on Instagram. I was asking people if there was a party, for example, or asking people opinion. This is really embarrassing. I wish people could forget about that. I have two more reasons on why I wanted to quit Instagram. One of which is I work with social media. I work in social media management and I would see strategy all the time. I would think strategy all the time. So when I posted at the peak of my usage of Instagram, I would post and be like, this is the right moment, this is the right song, I did this and that. Yet it was just personal space. So why would I spend so much time thinking about strategy? And you know, I was scrolling thinking that it was leisure time for me, but still thinking, oh my God, this is a great idea for my brand that I work with. I was always thinking about strategy all the time. So I was working on the day on social media and at night I was scrolling through social media, still thinking about my work. And then last, I realized I always wanted more. Ever since I quit, I've never experienced the same thing. So I am on YouTube, TikTok. I'm not on TikTok anymore, but I was on Pinterest. And I really like Pinterest. I'm still on Pinterest. The only platform that made me want more all the time is Instagram. I wanted more skincare, more clothes, and all of that had to be aesthetic, and it was only based off one picture, which on Pinterest it's not the same. It's more like a vibe. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm looking for bed sheets, perhaps I like this and that. Whereas on Instagram you see one picture and you're like, oh my God, this bedding is really beautiful and I wish I had that one. Okay, so as I said, little by little I started to post less and to use Instagram way less. Eventually, one day I was like, should I quit? I started watching more and more videos about quitting and people were like, oh my God, it's so amazing, you should quit. So it was really a transition moment where I still had Instagram, but I wasn't really using it. And then about a month ago, I was like, well, I'm really not using it, so let's do it. Let's deactivate my account and see what happened. And ever since, I have barely gone onto it. Obviously for my work I still have to check sometimes. Like, that's something that I was fearing about, is what does it mean for my career that I stopped using a social media. That's something that people ask me in my job interviews. They're like, do you use any social media? How do you want to respond to, no, I don't use Instagram because I think it's toxic for myself? In my new job, I realized that there is not just social media, there is also printed communications. The last thing that I was fearing is not having news from my friends. When I was in the transition period of not being on Instagram, I actually realized that I didn't get personal information about those people. They would just post and I would reply to their stories, or I would reply to in a comment, and that's how we would keep up with each other. So I think we're almost there, but let's talk about what changed in my life ever since I left Instagram. I wish I could say that I have more genuine connection with people, but it's actually not the case. I feel like I have lost some friendships, or at least I've lost contacts with people. These are people that I had no contact with except on Instagram, and I would again reply to this story saying, oh, that's nice, hey, how are ya? But wouldn't have any deep conversations. I really wish I could say that I have more genuine connection, but actually I've lost some superficial connections, which is okay for me. I feel like some of my close friends who posted a lot on Instagram, they think that I do not give any news anymore because I don't post. I'm really sad that some of my friends thinks that they can't have any news from me except from Instagram. If you're going off Instagram, make sure you're ready to lose friendships or lose what you thought was friendships. And sure enough, plan on how you want to contact your real friends. Some of them won't understand your choice of quitting a platform. You should be able to talk to them before you leave and tell them like, okay, how can I contact you and how can we keep contact? How would you like it to happen? If you do not do that, you are going to end up with me with friends who do not understand your choice and do not realize that you really are not on Instagram anymore. I still have some people like sending me messages on Instagram, and they know that I'm not there anymore. On the positive notes is the fact that I have more time for my hobbies. Back then when I was on Instagram, I would spend hours and hours on it scrolling, and I still do that when I'm on YouTube, but I'm more like, oh, this is not the content that I like, so it's easier for me to leave YouTube. I wouldn't advise you to quit Instagram just because you are spending too much time on it. I think our brains still need some free of thinking time. Our phones do provide that time, but perhaps a little too much. I wouldn't advise you to quit Instagram just because you are spending too much time on it. I don't think you're going to resolve that problem. My hobbies are more intentional. I'm spending more time creating. I realize I have so many hobbies. I love to sew, doing videos, gardening. That concludes my video. Again, if you're thinking about quitting Instagram, think about deeper of, oh, that's taking me too much time. There's probably something else that makes you want to quit Instagram. And yes, if that's how you keep your friendship connections, perhaps you should think before quitting Instagram. As my mom always said, extremes are bad, better is to be in the middle. So I think there is a possibility where you could stay on the platform and still use it less. Perhaps you might end up like me, being like, oh, actually I don't use it enough to justify still being on it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what is your experience with quitting Instagram and wanted to quit, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video. I see you next one. Bye!